Natural Science Foundation of China and the Sao Paulo Research Foundation, Fapesp. We're very excited to be here on this first kickoff of projects. This is an initiative that has been a long time coming. Fapesp believes strongly in the importance of international collaboration to promote quality and impact of research on all fields. And this collaboration with China had been a long time coming. China is one of the major powerhouses of science in the world. We have had, for a number of years, collaborations established with a number of countries, but finally we have managed to start a framework for collaborating with the Natural Science Foundation of China. On our plans, this is only the first call for proposals, the beginning of our collaboration that we hope will extend over many years with increasingly large and relevant projects of increasing scope. And now I'd like to pass the words to my colleague, Dr. Zhou, to welcome you in the name of the Natural Science Foundation of China. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Albuquerque. And good morning and good evening to Brazil and Chinese participants to this event. And as you said, that we have been in very close tie between each other in co-funding research in different areas for so many years. And we have launched a number of joint research programs for Brazilian researchers and Chinese collaborators. And today, we all know that this is the first joint call for proposal between NSFC and Sao Paulo Research Foundation in the name of sustainability under the framework of United Nations Advocation on Sustainability. And in fact, this time we have found 6 joint research programs, which account for nearly 1/3 of the total funding numbers under the Sustainable Development International Collaboration Program initiated by the NSFC and its international partners, including Sao Paulo Research Foundation. So we are very proud of being part of that, and we are very proud of what we have been doing with the Sao Paulo Research Foundation for the past years. And this shows that Sao Paulo Research Foundation has become one of the most important partners in this area. And so in this opportunity, I would like to express my gratitude to Sao Paulo Research Foundation and researchers from Brazil and China. And today's meeting is not only a kick-off event, but more importantly, my point of view is that it is a kind of academic exchange. That is the joint workshop, let's say, what I can call that workshop, with participation by the colleagues from Sao Paulo Research Foundation, also, more importantly, the researchers from both sides. So the researchers are the main players, they are the highlights. So I would very much like to invite Dr. Zhou Tianjun to be the Chinese moderator, and perhaps some of the Brazilian researchers know that Dr. Zhou has been very active in the research and also in the international collaboration for many years. And perhaps some of you know that in 2021 climate change workshop, Dr. Zhou also served as the moderator from Chinese side. So this time we are very glad Dr. Zhou join us today again. And I believe that with this kind of activities, the people from both sides will get to know more about each other. So the research could be carried out in a rather deep extent, and so that our expectations and the goal that we have set when we launch the program could be reached by the end of the program. So together, I would like to leave more space and time to researchers to make their presentations, and will conclude my remark or welcome with the best wish to the kickoff event. And so now I would like to give the floor to Dr. Zhou and his counterpart from Brazil, Dr. Apresentação. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your attention. Back to you, Dr. Albuquerque. Over to you, Dr. Albuquerque. And in fact, the academic exchange could be started from now on. And we could leave the floor to Dr. Zhou and Dr. Apresentação.
Dr. Zhu, can you start?
Start what? I just finished my welcome and just said that I leave the floor to our two moderators from China and Brazil. In fact, the academic exchange could be started now. So according to the agenda, I think the first team will be the first team is Lian Xiaomei from China, and her Brazilian counterpart is Sawakuchi, right? Okay, so who will be first? Okay, no, so Dr. Zhou will be the moderator first. Dr. Zhou, would you please start?
Okay, it's time for the lecture. The first speaker from Dr. Lian Xiaomei of Chinese side and Dr. Andrea Sawakuchi from Brazil side. They will talk about the hydrogen blue carbon in the Yangtze River Valley and Amazon coastal wetlands.
I think your phones are open. Sorry, maybe you must remember to turn them off because we can hear you talking. If I may suggest, perhaps Dr. Apresentação and Dr. Zhou might say a few brief words regarding the topic of this call, which is climate change and adaptation. So, okay, let's move on then to the first presentation.
Oh, yes, we actually just announced that the first presentation could be done by Professor Lian Xiaomei from China and Dr. Andrew Sawakuchi from Brazil. And Professor Lian will take the lead first.
Okay, can I start?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. Good evening and good morning, everyone. I'm Xiaomei Lian from East China Normal University. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to attend the kickoff event of the joint program on climate change between China and Brazil. The title of our project is The Fate of Holocene Blue Carbon in the Yangtze and Amazon coastal wetlands in response to precipitation and sea level changes. I will introduce the background of the project and the significance of cooperation, And then Professor Andre Savakuchi will introduce the other part of the project. I'm associate professor at Skate Laboratory of Astronomy and Coastal Research is China Normal University. And I'm the head of SKLEC's Luminescence Dating Laboratory. My current research mainly focuses on quaternary chronology, coastal geomorphology, and sedimentology. SKLEC is a national K laboratory supported by the Ministry of Science and Technology of China. Our laboratory has been mainly involved in human-nature interaction in the coastal zone through interdisciplinary studies of geomorphological, biogeochemical, and ecological processes. Coastal blue carbon lies between the ocean blue carbon and terrestrial gray carbon. During recent years, coastal blue carbon has been defined as the carbon fixed by the coastal wetlands, including mangrove, salt marsh, and seagrass. Coastal wetlands at mouth of large rivers play an important role in carbon sinks or the sources of greenhouse gas to the atmosphere. Global climate is changing dramatically, especially in the estuarine and the coastal regions. However, there is still a lack of understanding of how carbon barrel processes and greenhouse gas emissions in wetland of large rivers will react to future climate change, such as precipitation change and sea level rise due to the global warming. The Holocene experienced significant climate change and sea level change. The past events offer an analog informing the future from the past. Thus, investigating carbon sinks and sources in this period is key to understand how coastal wetlands carbon barrel will react to the future climate change. The Yangtze River and Amazon River are the longest river in Asia and South America, respectively. They can have large influence on the regional carbon budget due to their extensive wetlands. These systems are also key to appraise natural greenhouse gas emissions from Brazil and China. These two rivers are located on different latitude and climatic zones. And they also have different histories of human development in the basins. The Holocene stratigraphy and carbon sequestration process of coastal wetlands in the estuaries of these two rivers are expected to show different features. And a comparative study can enable a deeper understanding of the roles of climate and human activities on carbon sequestration of coastal wetlands. This is an advantage that study on a single estuary doesn't have. This is our research team, 6 members from China, 8 members from Brazil, and I will introduce the Chinese members, and Professor Savakuchi will introduce the members from Brazil. And the Chinese members include Professor Wei Guozhang, Professor Qianli Sun, Associate Professor Yan Liu, Professor Dongqi Wang, and me from East China Normal University, and Professor Yunping Xu from Shanghai Ocean University. we have different backgrounds, including geochronology, sedimentology, geomorphology, and geochemistry, paleoecology, and paleoclimate change. So the background fit the context of the project, and there is also a good interdisciplinarity. Okay, in the following time, Professor Andre Shavakuti will introduce the details of the presentation. It's your turn, Andre. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
So greetings to everyone, and thank you, Professor Nia, for this introduction. Now I'm gonna introduce myself and the members in Brazil and talk more about the project's development. So I'm André Sawakushi. I'm a geologist from the Institute of Geoscience of University of São Paulo. I'm of the main field of the same field of Professor Nia. We are all both from the luminescence dating community. Could you go to? I think I can change here.
Okay. This slide, or can you control the presentation? No.
So, okay.
I think I will do it for you. You can tell me. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take from here. Okay. So I'm the head of the Luminescence and Gamma Spectrometry Laboratory at the Institute of Geoscience. This is a multi-user facility funded by Fapesp. We started working on luminescence dating here in Brazil in 2012. And the focus of my research is on Earth surface process, especially about how climate change can change the Amazon and the surface process. The main goal of our project is to better understand how these two big rivers, actually when these big rivers meet the ocean, the coastal areas of the Amazon and the Yangtze rivers works as in the carbon cycle during the Holocene. This is very important to understand how these areas will behave in terms of the current and future climate change. This is linked to these three priority themes of the Sustainable Development International Cooperation Program. This is linked to how process of carbon sequestration and carbon storage in the coastal systems of global relevance. We need to improve the assessments of carbon storage and emissions in natural systems. This is very important to forecast the greenhouse concentrations in the atmosphere. And we also need to explore how anthropogenic threats like deforestation and the building of dams will change the function of these two large rivers. We are motivated by these four specific research questions. Both the Amazon and the Yangtze are under the influence of monsoon systems, the South American and the Asian monsoon. And we also need to understand how these coastal areas will respond to increasing sea level, because sea level can drive erosion and then input carbon to the atmosphere. We also want to investigate the difference and similarities between these two systems and get an assessment about how much carbon is stored in the coastal areas of these two systems, and if these areas are emitting or more storing carbon during the Holocene. And a specific question about erosive process that can release the CO2 and methane that is stored in the sediments of these two areas. We apply methods to constrain the accumulation of carbon in space. So we apply geomorphological mapping and sedimentary phase analysis, methods to constrain the carbon accumulation through time using luminescence and radiocarbon dating, and also get information about the source of organic matter that can be stored or produce methane and carbon dioxide in these two areas. And also measure the emission of greenhouse flux to get an overview about the carbon balance in these two areas. Regarding the project schedule, we plan to have 2 field trips in the Amazon coastal area and 1 field trip in the Yangtze Delta in the first year, so we can start working on analytical methods, and then have 3 scientific workshops during the 2 years of the project. We expect to get a better understanding about the process responsible for accumulation and emission of carbon in coastal areas of large rivers in general. Also promote academic cooperation between Brazil and China, especially the exchange of knowledge on the main methods we are going to apply: luminescence dating, geochemistry, and assessments of greenhouse gas emissions. And for mid to long-term scientific cooperation, because both systems are very large and complex, so we need much more projects to get a good view. Besides me, members in Brazil include Professor Cristiano Chiesi from the School of Art, Science and Humanities of USP, Professor Vânia Neu, which is based in Belém, in the Federal Rural University of the Amazon, Professor Fabiano Pupin, from the Federal University of São Paulo, Professor Henrique Sawakushi, which is actually based in Sweden, in the Linköping University. 2 postdocs, Dr. Marília Campos, based in the Institute of Geosciences, and Dr. Dailson Bertassoli from the School of Arts, Humanities, and Science of USP, and a specialist in luminescence dating, a technician in my lab, Thais Minelli. So, thank you for your attention, and I'm open for questions after our presentations.
Thank you, Xiaomei and Anna, for saving the time. Let's move on. Paulo, it's your turn now.
Yes, okay. Let's, without any delay, call for the next of our projects, that is resilience and adaptation to climate change in cities, time for actions with nature-based solutions. So I would like to invite the Brazilian partner, Professor Denise from the School of Architecture from University of São Paulo to start, followed by Dr. Zhu, the Chinese partner. Denise, please.
Thanks a lot. Yes. Okay. Thanks a lot. First of all, good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot, Professor Ratacho, and to the program for this opportunity to make this true, finally, with the National Natural Science Foundation of China. I would like to thank my Chinese partner, Dr. Wei Zhu. Thanks a lot for inviting me and trusting the team to do this together. I'm going to briefly present to you the project Resilience and Adaptation to Climate Change in Cities, Time for Action with Nature-Based Solutions, from our side, from the Architecture and Urbanism School, with a partnership at the Atmospheric Sciences Department at USB. So in very few words, just to give an overview about the project, these extreme heat events have caused several heat disasters, besides threatening the health of population. And to ameliorate the situation, the green infrastructure is one of the most effective strategies. And China and Brazil are facing rapid urbanization, but with different socioeconomical constraints and other kind of vulnerabilities. For example, São Paulo, the socioeconomic inequalities are huge, while in China, the population aging is very important. So the methods we propose to address an urban greening planning framework includes the attribution of urban heat extremes, heat risk assessment, search in within city heterogeneities, studying the trees cooling potential in different situations regarding urban morphology and the population vulnerabilities. Finally, we want to propose spatial plans for tree planting under different scenarios, including future projections of climate data based on climate change and urbanization. So, looking to São Paulo, it's very clear that the urban morphology varies a lot around the territory, but in all cases, green is under pressure, even in informal settlements in very poor neighborhoods or in very wealthy neighborhoods and high-rise buildings. Having said that, and having a look at the metropolitan area during the day and during the night, it's very clear that the surface temperature varies a lot and has a lot to do with the green inequality distribution in the city. Looking closer to the municipality, it's clear that the urban oases we have in the city are totally related with the vegetation we have in the city, a very unequal distribution. And besides that, or in parallel to that, in the last years, the last 8 years, were the hottest registered worldwide. And as far as I understand correctly, after 3 years, La Nina is gone, and El Nino is supposed to be back. Okay, so we are expecting more trouble in the near future. In the last months, thinking about this project, we started looking to the city. We have 97 districts in the city of São Paulo, and started to cross the information of temperature, land surface temperature, and urban morphology with socioeconomic data regarding income, age, informal settlements, and extreme temperatures. And it's very clear that they are closely correlated. Looking closer to the urban morphology, it's very clear to see that the urban green is a point of attention for us. So, in a sentence, urban extreme heat affects vulnerable people most, besides of all the other factors. And regarding this, the objectives and research questions we want to address. What are the synergistic effects of climate change and urbanization on extreme heat events in cities? How do urban extreme heat events disproportionately affect urban residents? In what physical and social conditions does the cooling capacity of trees have the greatest environmental and social impact? And at the end, how to maximize the cooling effects of urban trees for more resilient, adaptive cities? I will let the methodology for my partner, Professor Wekizu, synthesizing the expected results. We hope that at the end we have the scientific basis for an urban green space planning and management, and we are thinking also about the practical significance of these results. Locally, we have the Plan Clima SP, the Municipal Climate Plan. We have the State Pact 2050 from the state of São Paulo, and luckily we can rescue the National Climate Adaptation Plan, finally, after 4 years, and we can contribute somehow to this. So regarding the project coordination, management, and added value of the corporation, from the Brazilian side, we have the Architecture and Urbanism School with the support of the Atmospheric Sciences, and on the Chinese side, the Urban Ecology Group of Professor Wekizu. The Brazilian team is formed by myself at the Architecture School, my colleague Professor Humberto Rocha at the Atmospheric Sciences Department, Dr. Paulo Shinzato, an associate researcher formerly from our group at the university, 2 PhD candidates from both schools, and plus 4 researchers that are about to join the project, holding the Fapesp technical training grants. They are being selected. Thanks for your attention, and Professor Wekizu, the stage is yours. Thank you.
All right. Can you see my slides?
Yes, perfect.
You can see my slide?
It's cut. We can see, but
let me
it's
try
cut.
again. Let me try again.
Okay.
Sorry, we cannot see. So I switched to the PDF version. Just a second, okay? Sorry about this. Let me see. Stop. PDF. Don't worry, I will save the.
We can project your presentation from here. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, no.
It's perfect now.
Meeting. Oh, okay. So, all right. So you can help me, right?
Yeah, we can change the slides from here.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good morning, my friends from Brazil, and good evening, my Chinese colleagues. And I'm Wei Qizhou. I'm from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Actually, I'm from the Research Center for Eco-Environmental Sciences. So here, I'm delighted to present, to give you an overview of the project co-led by Professor Denise and myself. And first of all, I would like to thank the two foundations for supporting our project. But also, it's, you know, Professor Denise and I planned that I presented the presentation first. And then, so I will give you an overview of the project. And then Professor Denise will give you some more details about how we're going to use a sample as an example. But it's okay. I will try my best. You know, I think it's also perfect to just give you some detailed information about the city and how we're going to do that. And then we will see, in my presentation, I will see how important the project is, not just to Beijing and Singapore, but to, you know, many of the cities worldwide. So can you turn the next pages? Next, please. Okay. So we know cities are warmer than, you know, than their surrounding regions already. And with the synergistic interaction between climate change and urban expansion, so cities are expecting more frequent and intense, you know, heat extremes. So which will have significant social, ecological, and health impacts. Next, please. And, you know, this is particularly true, as we know, there are more than half of the world population live in cities, and the number is growing. And, you know, particularly considering, as just Professor Denise talked about, you know, population aging, and, you know, you know, people, you know, have different education kind of backgrounds, and also, you know, they have different capacity for heat adaptation. Next. So next, please. So cities are actually very vulnerable to climate change. And that's why, you know, worldwide cities are leading the fight against climate change and take many actions. Among the many solutions, nature-based solutions, you know, like particularly like urban tree planting has been one of the most widely used tools for heat mitigation and adaptation. Next, please. Next, please. actually it becomes one of the most proposed nature-based mitigation tools in city worldwide, regardless of climate change. We know, trees cool the cities by two primary processes: evapotranspiration and the shading. Next, please. In addition to cooling, actually trees can provide many benefits. We know that for biodiversity protection, stress reduction, air purification, stormwater management, etc. And that's why many cities worldwide, establishes their urban tree canopy goals as a nature-based solution. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So when we use trees as a nature-based solution, one of the first and the foremost question we are asking, is where to plant the trees, right? And because cities have very limited space and a resource for greening, more importantly, as just Professor Denise mentioned, heat disproportionately affect different urban populations, with urban poor and those people with less education, being more exposed and having limited capacity to heat mitigation and adapt to heat events. So therefore, understanding who is most vulnerable, where they live, and whether they have equal access to benefits of trees for cooling is a critical starting point for prioritizing urban heat intervention in planning and policy and several levels of governance. As Professor Denise just mentioned, so planning and design is one of the key kind of tool to guarantee this kind of environment justice. Next, please. So I think I can accept this because Professor Denise just mentioned we have 3 or 4 research questions. So the overarching goal is to understand how nature-based solutions such as tree planting especially can help build more resilient and adaptive cities for climate change. Next, please. So we are lucky. So we get support from the two foundations so that we can do studies in 2 cities, Beijing and St. Paul. So Beijing is capital city of China, and St. Paul is the most popular city in Brazil. Because of I have limited time, so I cannot show you many details about Beijing. But we very much welcome you to Beijing to know more about the city next time. Next page, please. Next. So Professor Denise just showed you the research framework. So basically, we will do 3 things. So first, we try to understand the spatial temporal patterns of urban heat extremes. And then from there, we try to understand the heat risk for people people living in cities. Especially, we will think about that in the environment justice perspective. To see where and who are the most at risk, particularly the socially and economically vulnerable people. And the third thing we're going to do is try to integrate planning and design into the solution, the nature-based solution for heat mitigation and adaptation. Next, please. Next. So here are some a little bit more details about what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to examine the spatial temporal patterns of extreme heat events and how climate change and urbanization affect that. So next, please. Next, so we will use some of the key methods, including emerging hotspots analysis, and also use multi-scale geographically weighted regression. Try to understand this. Next, please. So secondly, we try to understand urban heat risk using an integrated social and ecological approach. So we are first quantify the spatial temporal patterns of urban heat risk. It's really important. So it's not just from ecology or social perspective, but it's really integrated a social ecological perspective. And we will investigate the spatial relationship between urban heat exposure and extreme heat, socioeconomic vulnerabilities, and urban green infrastructures. Next, please. So we will use the heat risk assessment, use the framework in AI5 of IPCC. So this framework basically include heat hazards, exposure, and vulnerability to try to understand, where the extreme heat occur, who are the most vulnerable, and how that is how we can best to allocate those limited greenery. Next, please. And finally, we try to understand urban tree planning as a nature-based solution to improve the resilience and adaptability of cities to climate change. So next, please. As Professor Dennis already talked about the details, and here we'll use some of the key methods like cooling efficiency, urban city spatial variation of cooling efficiency analysis, and also we will do quite a few scenario simulations, try to understand, the future different future scenarios about, in planning and design. Next, please. So as just what Professor Denise presented, we also have done a lot in Beijing already, not from this project, but from our previous project. We already collect lots of data, and we also well prepared in some of the methods. And I think with that, this is my last. Yeah, that's the next. This is my last slides, and thank you, and I'm welcome. I'm ready to take any questions.
Thank you very much. So I would like to ask Professor Chen Jun Zhou to do the presentation for the next talk, please, for the next project.
Thanks. Our third speaker on the list, Dr. Medina, is still on the way due to the jet hour. So the original third talk is moved to the last one. Our next talk will be given by Dr. Leonardo Morilato from Institute of Bioscience, UNES, and Dr. Fu Yongshuo from Beijing Normal University. Lena, please. Okay, I see you. Please. Okay, let's go. This is an original schedule. Thanks. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and it's my pleasure to attend this meeting. So I'm Qian Jindong from Wuhan University, and the title of the proposal is Flash Drought Event Evolution Characteristics and the Response Mechanism to Climate Change, considering the spatial correlation. And we have many cooperators, and I will introduce later. Next, please. Professor? Okay. This is our team, and I will introduce you researchers from China. And we have 6 experts from China, including 4 experts from Wuhan University and 2 experts from Scientific Institute of Yangtze River Water Resources Commission. And also we have researchers from Brazil, and including Professor Maria and Nilo Weber and Wisa. Next, please. Okay. We also have researchers from Brazil. There are 8 persons from different affiliations. Next, please. Oh, this is the announcement of our proposal, and from the São Paulo Research Foundation and the NSFC. This is announced online. Please, Lex. Hi, this is 2PI and Professor Maria. He is a professor from the University of São Paulo, and I'm is Qianjin Dong from Wuhan University, and I'm associate professor from the School of Water Resources and High Power Engineering. And I'm very lucky to cooperate with Professor Maria, and I have done some research now. Please, next. And I will introduce the background of our proposal. And the first one is background. Please, next. It is well known that the drought is usually happen, and in 2022, the Yangtze River have suffered a severe flash drought, and you can see the left picture. The left picture is the road appears in the mainstream of Yangtze River, and the right picture is shown the temple, which has a very long history, and usually the temple is flooded in water, but now it also appears due to the flash drought. So we need to know why and how this phenomenon appears. Next, please. Also, in Brazil, also have suffered severe drought. The upper picture is the drought of Brazil in 2014, and the bottom is the drought of in Brazil in 2017. Next, please. And we all know that the drought is connected to each other, and also this drought is connected to the other drought, and whether the precipitation or the soil moisture were connected, and that means it will affect from one area to another. So we will considering the spatial correlation in our proposal, and spatial correlation is an important background for our study. Next, please. And also we have done many research on flash drought, but in Yangtze River and in San Francisco, there are still many problems to be solved. So we considering this proposal. Next, please. The second part is the content of our proposal. Next. In our proposal, and we will take the Yangtze River Basin and San Francisco River Basin as an example. And we all know that flash drought events have a very strong spatial and temporal continuity, and it is well known that flash drought events are more sensitive to global warming, and the the loss of flash drought is very huge. So it caused direct losses of more than $210 million in the middle and lower reach of Yangtze River and the south of the river in 2019 China. So we think it is very urgent to study the flash drought in both countries. Next, please. So this is the content of our proposal, and there are two parts in the content. The first one is the identification of flash drought events and the analysis of influencing factors. And the second content is analysis of the response of flash drought events to natural climate variability under spatial correlation. And the third is analysis of the response of flash drought events to anthropogenic climate change under spatial correlation. And here we show the logic for these three paths. Next, please. And the first one is identification of flash drought events and analysis influencing factors, and we will identification of flash drought event and use a new synthesis rule and analysis the influencing factors of flash drought. And here we show the previous studies, and they present a soil water content to identify the flash drought. And we will, based on this, and present a new index of flash drought. Next, please. And the second is the analysis of response of flash drought events to later climate variability and under spatial correlation. And we will construct of spatial and frequency domain response models of drought indicators by spatial factors, and study the response of drought indicators under different future scenario because of the climate change. Next, please. And the third is the analysis of the response of flash drought events to anthropogenic climate change under spatial correlation. And we will model the response of flash drought indicators to anthropogenic climate change factors, and study the response of drought indicators under the impact of different human activities on climate. Next. Okay, it's your turn, Professor Maria.
Okay. Hello, Kenjin. Thank you. So, good morning, good evening in China. It's a pleasure. Eduardo Mario Mendiondo, the UNESCO Chair of Urban Waters at the University of São Paulo. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Paulo, and the organization. So, next slide, please. Could you move the slide, Kenjin? It's my fault. So, well. Okay. Okay. This project was brainstormed about some paradox we have in Latin America, especially the coevolutionary Amazon sanitation and paradox. That's deforestation we have in the Amazon influence this southeast part of Brazil, and also in northeast in several factors. One aspect we see here in this project is not only the assessment, the prediction also coupling with the climate change scenarios of IPCC, the new report, but also adaptation procedures. Here we see a Chinese knot, meaning that's a very important knot dealing about partnership. That means that we need to introduce complex systems here. So how Amazon, as a big pumping factory of water, is influencing several river basins in Latin America, and especially this dilemma with the Northeast in the San Francisco River. So we are in the transition to risk approach, to resilience approach as the IPCC is proposing. And this complex system, we see here water as the main kernel of the process for all the other impacts. So health, food, water, household, ecosystems itself. So that is an overall picture. That means we have the main science questions being overlapped with some communication procedures, because also in this project we have people coming from social science. I see here the Professor Susana Diaz from Unicampi, and from health systems, Adelaide Nardose. At the same time, we are trying to make synergies with other ongoing running projects. So we see here the Sustainable Development Goals in climate action at the top, coming from the National Institute of Science and Technology for Climate Change, being coordinated by the CEMADEN, the National Center of Monitoring and Alerts of Disasters. In the other, we have, of course, the new National Institute of Science and Technology that is just launched about water security and adaptive management. This is ONES Adapta. And the other side, in the right part, also another National Institute of Science and Technology. This is very, very new, of fighting hunger. So we have in this picture, how can we deal from one example of this National Science Foundation China and Fapesp, the synergies we have with other projects also being promoted by Fapesp. That is the Center of Artificial Intelligence. This is an running project. The other is the CEMI. That is the Center of Applied Math for Industry. And of course, inside the USP, we have two interdisciplinary groups. INCLINE is the Interdisciplinary Climate Center. That is being coordinated by the Professor Tercio Ambris is here. Professor Paulo is also the vice coordinator. And the Center of Education. Education is a driving force here. And Research of Disaster, the CEPET. And also the UNESCO Chair of Water. So all together brings this very simple schedule for the 3 years in order to assess, to combine the scenarios from the IPCC, and the third, the adaptation mechanisms from the projects. So 1 minute left. So just the first results, we have submitted one abstract to be a concept paper for an international conference, learning water human adaptation from historical droughts in the Yangtze River Basin and the San Francisco River Basin. So that is our, let's say, first step, and we are very open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you very much. Very interesting and, of course, very relevant project. So I would like to call for the next project. We will have questions and discussions at the end for all the projects together. So basically, the next project is the impact of climate variability and weather extremes on tropical vegetation phenology and its implication for biodiversity. Is coordinated on the Chinese side by Yongsoo Fu, and from the Brazilian side by Professor Patricia Morelato from Unesp. Patricia, the word is yours.
Thank you, Paulo. I think I would like to thank you for the opportunity to apply for this first launch of this collaboration between Brazil, represented by Fapesp, and China. And we are very pleased to present our proposal that was approved, and which is named, oh, sorry, can you, okay. And with this proposal, we are very happy to see the introduction to the last project, because we want to work with extreme events, especially drought, and so we can receive some advice from our colleagues from. Do you want some help? Could you put the first one? Can you put an open in presentation mode? Okay, and I cannot. Where? Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Thank you. And so the project is the impact of climate variability on weather extremes on tropical vegetation phenology and implications for biodiversity. So our bias and our difference from the previous project is that we want to understand how climate change, especially some extreme events of drought, can affect plant phenology, or the life cycle of plants and animals, and the biodiversity and biodiversity conservation. Next, okay. So I'm here. I'm Professor Patricia Morelato. I'm going to lead the Brazilian team, which has people from all around the world, and my specialty is plant phenology, climate change, plant animal interactions, and biodiversity conservation. From the other side, my colleague that is going to talk to you in a minute is Dr. Yongsoo Fu. He's a distinguished professor in the Beijing Normal University, and he is also a specialist in climate change ecology and vegetation phenology, especially land surface phenology. Okay, here I want to show you a bit of the background we have discussed. As we just heard, we have an increase in the frequency of extreme climate events in the last years, as we can see here below here. And also we have the biodiversity, which is the foundation of life on Earth, has been strongly affected by climate change as well. However, these two subjects has been not usually dealt together in the same project proposal. And when we have projects dealing with climate change and others dealing with biodiversity loss, but not both things together. And tropical and subtropical regions are the most biodiverse in the globe, as we can see in the left and right side of this slide. So we want to combine that to next one. Okay, no, okay, oh, sorry. So we address this studying phenology, which is the study of recurrent life cycle events on plants and animal life cycles, and is considered the most sensitive biological indicator of climate change, and it's also an important factor maintaining biodiversity. In fact, the phenology is considered an essential biodiversity variable. And to understand the responses on tropical, subtropical vegetation phenology to extreme climate and its impacts on biodiversity is critical for climate change for two sustainable development goals: climate change, the 13, and biodiversity conservation, the 15. So when we have now, for instance, elevation of temperatures that's changing the timing of flowering or fruiting, changing the interrelationship of plants with pollinators, for instance, fruit and seed productions, then we have this in biodiversity conservation, and we have to understand these effects and the chain of effects that we have that climate change causes and biodiversity. And next. Well, we have two examples of extreme events: the drought of 2014 that drained the water reservoir and the water of Cantareira Reservoir in São Paulo and affected a lot of our vegetation here. And the today's news that is the extreme rainfall and seashore in São Paulo coastline. And here in the right-hand side of the slide, we can see the landslides on Atlantic rainforest and the destruction of some villages. So our idea, and what is the status of this kind of research? And we have a very well-established research on climate change and phenology in North Hemisphere. We have an attribution of phenological shifts of plants and animals to climate change. Yeah. But in the subtropical and tropical regions where we have a high diversity of species, this is still unclear. We don't have enough data to establish this attribution or how climate change may be affecting the timing of plant reproduction, the life cycle of plants, so the leaf production, and with this leaf production, the carbon cycles of how it has been affected by climate change. And this is what we want to address in this proposal. Sorry. And here, one of the bases of our study is that we have in the Brazil team has I can't change this. Has a large experience on land phenology and near surface phenology, and we have a network that has completed now 10 years, and it's major supported by Fapesp, and we have teams all over the Brazil, people all over the Brazil that is joining the team, and our expertise of my colleague that is now going to show you the knowledge gaps and methodology that we are going to use to approach this project. And it's an expert in land surface phenology. That's it. I hand to my colleague now.
Okay, thanks, Patricia. Good morning from. Yeah, could you please go to page 9? Yeah, good morning from Brazil friends, and good evening from my Chinese colleagues. It's my pleasure to present our studies. So also thank you, Professor Mariletto, to introducing the background of project. So in the next, I will give more details about project. So, so to sum up the current research, we have 3 knowledge gaps for the methodology. We are still lack of the method developed to accurately extract the phenology from tropical and subtropical regions using the multiple source data set. For the mechanisms, how the tropical and subtropical phenology responds to extreme drought, like extreme climate events, like drought, is still largely unclear. So also have the species-specific difference in phenological response to climate change. In fact, the biodiversity is still largely less on tension. For the third, for the phenology network, because they are still large leak of the cross-region tropical and subtropical plant phenology observation networks. So this is the main 3 knowledge gaps. So next, please. According to the research objectives, this project set up four research goals. First, to extract phenology and analysis of its spatial and temporal characteristics. And second, the response of the phenology to extreme drought at different scales. The third, the effect of the phenology change on biodiversity in tropical ecosystems. And the fourth, we try to build a common citizen science phenology network. From these research goals, we address the three key scientific questions. The first one is how to accurately integrate tropical and subtropical vegetation phenology originated from the different sources. And second, how tropical and subtropical vegetation phenology responds to extreme drought. And third is how the phenology mismatch affect the biodiversity in tropical ecosystem. So next, please. So from this, we addressed the four working packages. The first work package led by the Chinese part. From this, we tried to develop the accurate phenological extraction method using like the ground-based in situ data set, also using the remote sensing data set. Also, we also tried to understanding the spatial and temporal characteristics of the tropical and the subtropical phenology using different statistical method, also as well as the machine learning method. So next, please. For the second work packages, we try to understand the response of vegetation phenology to extreme drought. This is also led by the Chinese part. We're using different methods like the experiment. We use the experiment to see how the response of tropical and the subtropical plants to extreme drought. Because different issues we need to address from the extreme drought, like the different frequency and the intensity, and also the duration. We will examine this. We will using the multiple experiment. Also, we try to understand the scale of conservation laws of the response mechanisms using modeling approach, also using a machine learning approach. This is the work package 2. Next, please. For the third work package, this is led by the Brazil partners. We try to understand the effect of how the phenology shift effect on the biodiversities. We're using first we developed the biodiversity extraction method using a ground diversity modeling data set, also using the near surface phenocamo, also the UVA approach. And we also try to understand, we try to clarify the phenology variation of plants relying on the animal for reproduction in response to climate change and the impacts of the phenology mismatch on biodiversity. So next, please. For the last work packages, we tried to build a common citizen science phenology network. This is led by both partners, both sides. This is the phenology observation network based on the flagship tropical species, the blue. This is a very typical tropical species. We also try to develop the cloud platforms to develop this. This is a real-time shared displayed terminal for the phenology observations. So next, please. This is innovations from our project. First, we developed a accurate tropical and subtropical vegetation phenology extraction method and the JAWS high resolution vegetation phenology time series using multiple source dataset. And second one, we will reveal the response of tropical and subtropical vegetation phenology to extreme drought at different scales using control experiment, also field observations and remote sensing dataset. And third, we built a phenology observation network and analysis the chain response mechanisms of the climate change. Normally, we focus on the extreme climate events. Two, interspecies difference in phenological response, and two, biodiversity maintenance. Next, please. So this is what we would like to gather from this project, the impact output. we have 3 different levels. For the scientific levels, we try to enrich our knowledge of the mechanisms of the vegetation phenology response to extreme drought at the tropical and subtropical regions. And second, we try to reveal the impact of tropical and subtropical phenology changes on biodiversity. For the technical levels, we develop in the vegetation phenology extraction technology of the tropical and subtropical vegetation, and also building the phenology observation network across different regions, mainly focused on the tropical and subtropical regions. And for the other outputs, so we will publish the high-level papers and also some software works and monographs. Next, please. So for the other expected outputs, we will cultivate a team of the young talented with international version and international influence in the field of tropical and subtropical phenology and biodiversity conservation research. We also, recommend our young talented to apply for the projects, and we also jointly train we try to 2 postdoctors and 3 doctors and 6 master students. Also, we will build a phenology network. We named it is PhenoCB. So next, please. So from this project, the chain response mechanisms, we call it from the extreme climate change to interspecific phenology response to biodiversity maintenance. We reveal in this study will provide important technical and theoretical support for coping with climate change and biodiversity conservation in tropical and subtropical regions to solve for the SDG 13, sorry. So for the climate change and SDG 15 for the biodiversity conservations. So next, please. So actually, that's all what I talked about our project. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks to Yosho and Dana. Our next talk will be given by Dr. Zhang Haiwei from Xi'an University and Francisco de Cruz Jr. from University of São Paulo. They will talk about East Asian and South American monsoon in paleoclimate and also future projections. Please welcome.
Hi, good evening in China. Good morning here in Brazil. I'd like to talk about our joint project between Fapesp and the National Science Foundation of China, and you are really grateful for this project being funded. Sou eu, o primeiro. Isso. So my name is Francisco William da Cruz Jr. I'm professor at the Geoscience Institute of University of São Paulo, and I'm collaborating with Professor Haiwei Zhang from Xi'an University. And the title of our project is Spectrum Isotopic Reconstruction of Interhemispheric Monsoon Precipitation Pattern under different warming backgrounds in the past 140,000 years and the Anthropocene epoch. And I will give a brief outline of our project, which is discussing the background and significance, key scientific issues, the research content and technical route innovation points, and also give some research basis, working conditions, and also present some members of our joint project. So, in the context of the global warming, extreme droughts and floods occurs frequently, and climate change has attracted global attention. In the geological field, I'm a geologist, you have this past global change research page, which is an institution based in Europe that extracts long-scale climate change information from geological archives. To make up the lack of observational data, so as to understand the law and mechanism of climate system change. So we have seen some increase in the extreme events. For example, 2019 Yunnan droughts, 2020 Beijing floods. But you can also see in the geological timescales a difference in the warming backgrounds. If you compare, for example, from the right to the left, you see a blue curve. This blue curve is the Holocene temperature changes in the last 11,000 years, and there's no very large change in comparison to the pre-industrial time. But if you go back in time, if you see the last, in the middle of the graphic, if you see the last glacial, interglacial periods, there's some times during interglacials that the natural temperature is higher than the pre-industrial times. And you're facing now the consequence of the global warming. And if you see the current temperatures here, measured during the last decades, there is no precedent during the last million years. So you have this goal of reconstruction the natural change in temperature to compare the geological time and also to compare with the global warming period. Okay. Yeah, in Brazil, especially in Central Brazil, the temperature is above, during the last decades, the temperature has been increasing a lot, and the average is above the global mean. You are seeing now a temperature close to 2.5 degrees, and it is above the global mean. The change in temperature is causing some problems because it has been increasing the evapotranspiration in this area because the increase of temperature, and also have some problems with droughts, and this drought is impacting the river stream flows during the last decades, especially after the 80s. Okay. And based on Spiliotham's records, cave formations such as stalagmites, you are using, for example, some proxies for hydrological change, for example, magnesium over calcium ratios, and you see that the change in the last decades has no precedent during the last millennium. So the change in hydrological is really significant. And you can also compare this record from Spiliotams with other geological proxies, for example, ice core, rings, corals, and also historical records. And you are able to reconstruct the change in the monsoon precipitation during the last 600,000 years, and you can also see on the right a comparison between Asian monsoon and South American monsoon, and you are now during the last 20 years of my collaboration with Professor Haisheng, see some antiphasing relationship between Asia and South American monsoon, but you don't have much clues about the change in temperature. So the goal of this project is trying to reconstruct temperature based on the change in the Asian and South American monsoon. And yeah, a brief overview about the scientific question, which is the research on this precipitation seasonality and the different warming periods, for example, during the last 140,000 years, and how the ENSO could affect extreme droughts and flood events, and what is the human versus natural forces throughout the geological period, and are the effects of human forces so strong, so significant to impact the natural change in temperatures in related to the geological period. And this is our research network here through Fapesp. You have an interdisciplinary team of researchers working in different laboratories here in São Paulo State. And you also have several postdocs, graduate students, and undergraduate students being part of this research on paleoclimate. So I pass my word to my colleague, Haiwei-san, to finalize this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chico. Good evening, everyone, and also good morning in Brazil. I'm Haiwei Zhang from Xi'an Jiaotong University. Okay, could you please start from the 7th or 8th page? Yeah, next. I think it's all. Yes. Here are some. I will introduce some new development technology used in this project. For example, first we can use fluid inclusion analysis to reconstruct temperature changes in North and South Hemisphere. This is also the first test to use spectrum in fluid inclusion to reconstruct temperature changes. And we also can use a newly developed O17 excess proxy to check the water source changes, because the rainfall O17 excess proxy is significantly related to the humidity in the moisture source regions. At last, we can use this annual growth bounding to establish the seasonal resolution of monsoon precipitation in East Asia and also South American. Next page, please. I'm from the isotope lab in Xi'an Jiaotong University, and the lab leader is Professor Hai Qing. Our lab equipment with many equipments required for this research. For example, we have a very good uranium thorium dating lab, and we can also measure isotope and trace element fluid inclusion and O17 excess proxy. And we also have many high quality samples from East Asia and also South America. Next, please. Here I show several recent cooperative articles from me and also Professor Cruz, and published in some high impact journals. And we also used spectrum records from Northeast Brazil. Compared with other records from Northern Hemisphere, we can find the change of South American monsoon preceded the East Asian monsoon during the young dry events. Okay, next please. Here shows the project numbers from Chinese side. Dr. Yu Binpeng, she will do modeling work, and Dr. Li Juansha will do O17 analysis, and Dr. Han Ying Li will focus on trace element.
And we also have several PhD and master students will do field work and urine soil dating, fluid inclusion, stable isotope, layer counting, and also modeling works. Next, please. Here I show some new records got obtained from the latest new technique. For example, the fluid inclusion used to reconstruct the temperature changes during the Holocene. And also we can get seasonal resolution of 017 C13 and Delta 018 from southeastern China. And the last right corner shows 017 records from sample of northeast Brazil. It can show the humidity in the water source regions. Okay, next, please. Okay, thank you very much. And this is, I think, lost several page. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to announce the last project that has the title Synergistic Effects of Climate Change and Land Use on Carbon Source and Sink in Amazon Forest Ecosystem. It's coordinated in the Chinese side by Xian Xu and by the Brazilian side by Dr. Luis Augusto Toledo Machado. Luis? So it's Professor Xu that will start.
Okay, thank you. Dear colleagues, good morning and good evening. I will introduce the project Synergistic Effects of Climate Change and Land Use on Carbon Source and Sink of Amazon Forest Ecosystem. This project is led by Institute of Atmospheric Physics, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the Physics Institute of University of Sao Paulo. Next slide. So the Amazon forest, which is the most vast and biodiverse ecosystem in the tropical area, is very important for the entire Earth system. However, in the past decades, the Amazon forest has experienced rapid loss, and in some area, because of the deforestation, forest degradation, and wildfires, the forest ecosystem is shifting from the carbon sink to carbon source. Next, please. Except for other than the huge carbon pool, the water vapor and energy transport in the Amazon basin is an engine of global atmospheric circulation. After the forest loss, mostly because of deforestation, elevated hot and dry air reduce the downward mixing of water supplies from the tropical Atlantic that normally moisten the Amazon forests, which leads to frequent droughts in the rainforest and non-forest areas to the south. Next, please. So when deforestation slows the hydrological cycle sufficiently, the tropical forest ecosystem can't be sustained. So which is considered as one of the 9 tipping points of the Earth's climate system. Next, please. So the sustainable forest management and climate change mitigation are the common interests for both China and Brazil. In the BRICS environmental, the high-level meeting on climate change, the ministers of the BRICS governments proposed to address climate change, explore approaches to accelerate low carbon and climate resilient transition, and achieve sustainable, balanced, and inclusive recovery and development. And in the high-level dialogue on government development, China proposed to establish the global network for sustainable forest management to jointly implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Next, please. So in this project, so we propose to study the spatial and temporal dynamics of Amazon land use and its climate feedbacks, assess synergistic effects of climate change and land use on carbon source and sink in forest ecosystems, and also project a future carbon source and think of the Amazon forest ecosystem under different climate and land use scenarios. Next, please. So we will use remote sensing data, ground observations, and other historical and future climate data with a coupled Earth system model, land surface model, choose at multiple scales to investigate the forest system and climate interactions. Based on outcomes of this project, we expect to propose synergistic adaptation strategies for optimizing Amazon forest management and address climate change. Next, please. So the Chinese team and Brazil team has strengths to complete this project. So the Chinese team has advantages in the process and the mechanism of the climate system and the development and application of the Earth system model. Our Brazilian team colleagues have advantages in local knowledge and field experiments on the interactions between atmosphere and biosphere. They already have a long time data accumulation in this area. Next, please. So we expect this project will benefit for scientific community because we will develop data sets and we have some new findings to fill in the knowledge gap. And also we will train graduate students and postdocs for and we will hold the summer training course for young scientists. So to strengthen international exchange and capacity building. And this will also benefit for the policymakers to enhance the China and the Brazil joint research and promote the achievement of the sustainable development goals. Next, please. So this is me, Xu Xi, who will lead the Chinese team, and I'm a professor at the Institute of Atmospheric Physics of Chinese Academy of Sciences. I serve as lead author of IPBES assessment report and UNEP Global Environment Outlook. And this is the team of our side with professors and the postdocs who have expertise in ecological and Earth system modeling and dynamics. Next, please. So in our team, we will have 3 major tasks, and we will investigate Amazon land use and its climate feedbacks. We will analyze the characteristic of land use and investigate their climate feedbacks, and carry out coupled Earth system simulation and assess the climate feedback and contribution to extreme climate events. So in our past work, we already find the coherence of deforestation and wildfire increase. And also we found some results of deforestation results in precipitation reduction in South American Amazon region. Next, please. So we will investigate the effects of climate change and land use on carbon source and sink. We conduct a regional scale simulation to review impact of climate change and climate extremes on the carbon cycle of forest ecosystem. So in the simulation, we will consider the impact of climate and disturbance, and also for different forest type, age, and heights. Next, please. We will project the carbon source and think under different climate and land use scenarios by carrying out the simulation to reveal the future ocean, land, atmosphere coupling process under different land use and climate change scenarios, and projecting their effects on the carbon source and think of the Amazon forest ecosystem. Our preliminary results already show that with sustainable land use, the forest can accumulate much more carbon than without sustainable land use. Next, please. So I want to say we are already on the move, and a week ago we had online discussion for initializing the project. So next, let me have our collaborator, Dr. Luis Machado, to introduce the Brazilian team and their work contributing to this project. Luis, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Professor Xian Shu, and good evening to everybody in China, and good morning here in Brazil. Thank you for the introductions and to present the background and motivation so I can go straight to what you intend to do and the outcome we expect, and also to present the team. And it's nice to be the last one because you can see a big synergy of projects and several cross-cutting points that will be very important in the future to discuss. So I would like to introduce the Brazilian team. So my name is Luis Machado. I'm now a researcher at São Paulo University at Physics Institute, and also a collaborator in Max Planck Institute. And the team of these projects are composed by Professor Paulo Artacho, Professor Terson Brizzi, Professor Pedro Correa from Polytechnic Institute, and Alan Calheiros from INPE, Cleus Junior from Belém University, Federal University, and Luciana Rizzo, Professor of Institute Física. So I start to present the task we have here in Brazil. So the first one is to build an integrated data set, combine data from several towers we have in Amazons that measure flux from several cycles, from water cycles, carbon cycles. We have in ground instrumentation as Aeronet and several other instrumentation, field campaigns, and remote sensing data. So we are combining all this information to have an integrated data set that you show will be the base for our studies. And our idea is to have this data set for the last 35 years. And using these several different data sets with the FluxNet methodology, using neural network to combine to fix gaps in space and time, and also to forecast these data for the future, as I will show, like deforestation. So this is an important task because it will be the base when you run the model for several years. We have this background of the last 35 days to constrain the model in order to have a forecast of the partners of deforestation in the better quality as possible. But also, we are going to look the spatio-temporal characteristics of the land using. So we are using a different methodology where you select each of cells of deforestation and follow on time. So just using some metrics as a first guess of our classification, and using deforestation, compactness, size of the cells, we will reach on the right side a kind of classification of partners of standard way of deforestation in Amazons. And then tracking these deforestation cells in the last 35 years using the map biomes that classify in several details the use of each pixel of the image. So you'll be able to integrate the cell size, the rate of this size, direction, propagation, compactness, eccentricity, geographical features, and land classification to training a deep learner model to forecast the patterns of deforestation in order to introduce in the global model in the way we can forecast the deforestation pattern in the future. Another studies take this deforestation pattern, this 35 years you have, and integrate in study and analyze in order to see what's going on already without to need to a forecast model to look the deforestation. Here I will present just some preliminary results just for maximum temperature in Amazon. All these studies is for Amazon, methane. And so in the bottom you see yellow it's for the dry, and blue it's for the wet season in Amazons. You see an increase in the temperature along the years, different from dry and wet season, as well for the methane. But we also calculate the decrease in precipitation. We also calculate the increasing number of without rain, and it's very strong. And combined, you can, and also in the upper panel, you see this pattern as change as function of the deforestation. So how temperature increase with the deforestation, or methane, or CO2, or whatever. And combine these two features, you can have a kind of function that describe the year, the deforestation, and the variable you are looking for. So you see, with these parametrical models, you can forecast already kind of a number of days without rain in the next 10 years, and it's a strong effect. And finally, our tasks will be to access, to help to run the global simulations. The first step, for instance, using this biomass distribution that was collected by the INPE, Professor Jean Ometo, and with LiDAR flying in Amazon, so we can quantify the kilograms per meter square in Amazon. And so based in this pattern, you can simulate degradation, forest degradation, recover the forest, or continue different scenarios of degradation, as well the scenarios for deforestation using the different patterns that you intend to have from our study neural network. And so you see this is a scale time approach with different physical process, and we're gonna have this global simulation, and our side will be to have the downscale go to regional models in the simulation, looking in the scales and understand the process of carbon cycle, temperature, number of the day, what's the process is going on. So our expect contribution is to build a data set of ecosystem carbon budget in Amazon systems, 35 years, evaluate the effect of land use and climate change and greenhouse gas cycles using the data, and propose strategies for ecological protection, climate change actions in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. So now, going to the last issues in our program, we have time for questions and answers. I know it's difficult to make questions and answers in such different environments, but yeah, I would like to start pointing one issue that Luis just called the attention, that from the point of view of the Fapesp Global Change Program, we would like to see as much integration between the 6 projects as possible. We know that, each project has your own particularity, but several of them deals with the climate from the past, from the present, and also from the future. So maybe we can establish some kind of, let's say, mechanism for exchange of information on how the different programs are going to, and to allow better integration between the different teams. I think this, everybody could profit from collaborations and partnership on this scientific agenda. So basically, this was my first point. I don't know if Professor Zhu have any important point for this question and answer. And of course, we can open the floor to all the participants in this telecon.
Paulo, this is Tianjun. I actually have a similar question as you. As a moderator of Chinese side, I'm glad to see the themes of the projects cover a wide range of topics that both regions are most concerned with when they care about the climate change. The projects range from our traditional climate research, for example, monsoon evolution, climate, and weather extremes, to interdisciplinary topics such as the blue carbon, the carbon cycle, biodiversity, and the resilience, and also adaptation to climate change in cities. I believe that for each project, we will have fruitful outcome. My question here is how to promote collaborations between or among the 6 projects similar as you. I hope we can have some discussions on this.
Yeah. Any questions or issues that anybody would like to raise? We have a microphone that you can circulate here in the São Paulo part of it, and I guess also on the Chinese part. Please feel free to give your opinions, questions, and issues that you would like to raise.
Hello. Hello. Thank you all for this nice meeting. I would like to, thinking about what Professor Paulo Artacho has proposed, I think that just by watching this fine presentation of all the fine projects, I think we could, for instance, benefit from the findings of the Dr. Dong and Dr. Machado that are going to detect the flash drought events. And so this could benefit how we are going to analyze our long-term time series and changes in vegetation and leaf exchange patterns across different biomes. And also I saw that it seems that they have some work on Northeast Brazil where we have a network of observations and leaf exchange patterns. So it would benefit us to understand how they are going to detect these flash events, how they are going to connect to climate, and that maybe we could use that in our assessment of how these changes are affecting plant phenological behavior, especially leaf exchange patterns and carbon cycles. Just to give an example.
Good. We have a question here, an issue from Denise, please.
Yes, I think it will be very interesting to see climate change being addressed in different scales. Because in our case, for example, we look at the city scale or even more to the neighborhood scale, to the street scale, talking about people and their vulnerabilities. So this cross-cutting issue of the scales will be very interesting, and maybe we can just start something that could be addressed in other cities. For example, in the project in the Amazon, maybe in the future, we can do something on the city scale in that biome, which is totally different, and the vulnerabilities are others. So this scale thing will be very good to see among the 6 projects. And I think it's just a seed to start the next ones.
Very good.
Richie, please. So can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think this is a really good start. I think that thanks to the 2 foundations, and it's good to start to think about the the future collaborations among the 6 projects. As what I saw from today, I think there, to me at least, there are 2 things. So first, I see there's some potential collaborations among the 6 projects. For example, like in Professor Fu and Professor Moreto, they talking about the vegetation phenology, is how that responds to respond to climate change and how that might be affect biodiversity. So I think this can be an interesting part. Also, maybe just a small part, but it can be a really interesting part in our project. In the area of the city. So I think that it would be interesting to see, and also maybe also build some technology observation networks in cities. At least we can start thinking about it in Beijing and St. Paul, in our project. So that's one thing. The second thing, I think there's some of the I learned a lot from from the other projects about the methods and some of the modern methods and also some of the ASCO approaches. So I think that can be also from my perspective, that can be also applied in our project. So I think this can be useful for future potential collaborations among these 6 projects. And even more broad way, and also I think the framework, the social ecological framework applied in our project, applied in cities. I think this kind of thinking and perspective can be also applied in some other projects. I think to think about more about people, more about how the interaction between people and nature under the context of climate change and urbanization. I think that can add more to the other projects. Yeah, that's just my thoughts. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Harry Zhang. I think our project will provide the past climate change background. For example, on different time scale. For example, in the previous studies, we already can see very clear on orbital to millennial time scales. East Asian monsoon and the South American monsoon show antiphase changes, but how some behaviors on shorter time scale. For example, more people who signal scale is still unclear, and we collect very high quality samples. They have very clear annual bounding from Southeast Asia and also Northeast Brazil. Maybe we can get some very high resolution to see the precipitation changes on shorter time scale, and also we can extract the monsoon change during the warm period. For example,
MS5E is about 120,000 years ago. And also early Holocene is about 9,000 years ago. And also current warming period. These are different faulting is between human and also the normal nature faulting. So maybe we by this comparison work we can find some difference between them, and I think we can maybe provide some background. For example, the Holocene climate change for Professor Nian and Sawakuchi, and also maybe we can also learn from them how is the blue carbon change is respond to the precipitation and the sea level changes, and also Professor Wu and Professor Dong on this short time skills about drought and flood events. I think it's a very good start, and maybe we could see more collaboration between different projects. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have one question here from Mario Mediondo.
I appreciate very much the contributions of the projects. I congratulate also the Natural Science Foundation China and Fapesp. I think maybe starting a process, how can we, as an interdisciplinary team, can we promote as a game changers? Game changers means the way we are introducing disruptive methodologies, but we can replicate in several ways in our communities. I think this is the opportunity, the first point. How can these different projects promote this vision of game changers under climate change adaptation scenarios? The second is for this proposition, there's the nationally determined contributions. It's very common, new for us, but also we have another way of or metrics that's called nature's contribution to people. They are some emerging metrics in adaptation forums in order to make the complementary approach more related to a participatory adaptive response. So I think that's a good start, mixing the hard and the soft adaptation pathways in this moment. Thank you.
Please.
Implication from Professor Joe and Professor Axel about how we can consider the 6 projects together. So I have some, when I think about the topic of our program is a joint program on climate change. So the most frequent words today are climate change and the climate extremes. And then for different topics, talk about, we will do research about this climate change and the climate extreme impact on like different dimensions. For example, the earth, the marine and terrestrial ecosystems, and the water. So, so we probably can think about because these different dimensions are also what we propose in the nexus solutions to mitigate and adaptation to the climate change. So it's probably we can talk about how we can just integrate together to find the nexus solution for climate change mitigation.
Thanks, Lucia. Any other comments or suggestions?
a very brief note. First, I would like to thank NSFC and FATFP to organize this kickoff meeting. I think it's a very, very nice start because we know each other and work with the community. I think for the conclusion, that just a short response to and Professor Mary Legend. Actually, just technology is very big. Significant climate change, and it also impacts on Baltimore City as well as the carbon cycles. So I think this we have to that we can have more information. So all these things, I think we need to more meetings taking place on the and in the discussion of this that's finished. So that's very short, very short. Thanks for that's too short. Question here. Paulo, there is no question here.
Oh yeah, no question here also. So I think we could go for the closing remarks by Professor Jinghai Li and Professor Luiz Eugênio Melo that are both already on the floor. Please, Professor Li, I think you could start.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Respected Dr. Melo, very nice to see you. Distinguished guests, participants, and colleagues. I'm very pleased to attend this kick-off event of the joint program on climate change, which is the first substantive collaboration between Fapesp and NSFC. I would like to congratulate the 6 teams, joint teams, and offer my sincere gratitude to Dr. Melo and our Fapesp colleagues for your efforts. Also, I want to send my hearty condolence to all the victims of the floods that battered Sao Paulo in late February. Very sorry for this, and we set our condolence. I remembered in 2019 at the GRC meeting, Dr. Zego and I agreed that our 2 agencies should join hands in many of our priority areas. And we then signed the research collaboration agreement. Despite COVID-19, we maintained close contact over the following years. And on November 22nd, 2021, we co-organized the workshop on climate change, a great success that fostered good ties between researchers from 2 countries. Shortly after the workshop, Fapesp joined the Sustainable Development International Cooperation Program of NSFC, and we launched our first round of joint call for proposals on climate change. 6 out of 16 proposals were funded. Eventually, a kickoff event at this moment marks the substantial headway in our collaboration. We just listened to the 6 teams sharing their expectations of project development and had a fruitful discussion. I fully believe they will continue their cooperation to have a great success. We are facing both global challenges such as SDGs in society and in economy. And also we are facing paradigm shift in science. For science, we are facing complexities in all disciplines and the technical field. For society and the economy, we have many challenges, such as climate change, SDGs, and pandemics. No matter it is shifting the paradigm in science, when tackling global challenges or tackling global challenges in shifting the paradigm in science, the key is to identify the common principles for multi-level knowledge gaps and the related scientific questions. This is the common interest and opportunities for all knowledge domains, as well as common challenges for the global science community. So this is a very important feature for the science at this age, we believe. The biggest strength comes from solidarities. That is why we joined hands with Fapesp, and a very important partner that shares common aspirations and mutual interests. NSFC commitment to address global challenges and studying together with the global science community will always be a central pillar of our value. We will translate such commitment into concrete action by advising our science cooperation with international partners. I believe many more researchers would benefit from joint funding, and their appetites would contribute to the realization of UN SDGs and help to build a better world for all people. I'm really happy to meet you all, and with our joint program, a great success. This is just the start. I hope we will continue to extend our program. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So good night to all you colleagues in China. We're sorry for the time difference that we have, and that the meeting it's at a time that's very convenient for us in Brazil, even though it's very inconvenient for you in China. And I would say that it sets the basis for the importance that NSFC and the Chinese institutions represented here give to this initiative. Of course, good morning to all of you colleagues in Brazil, Paulo Artacho and everyone else here. And Professor Jinghai Li, it's my great pleasure being here with you today and seeing the advancements that we did over these 4 years since 2019, when you visited us in Brazil and met Professor Brito and set the initiative that later on we're able to further develop. As already mentioned, this partnership it's also of great relevance for Fapesp. We praise the opportunities that we have in terms of developing cutting-edge science and addressing problems that are of global importance in partnership with our colleagues in China and in this joint endeavor between NSFC and Fapesp. For this initial launch of call for proposals, we jointly selected global climate change because it's a no-brainer, as people often say. It's a global challenge every living being in this planet will face, is already facing. And this is just a start, as Professor Jing Haley already mentioned. We would like to move on and not only further, let's say, engage the 6 groups that were funded in this first call for them to act together and to promote whatever joint activities they may develop. I know it's not easy. I'm a researcher myself, and I know that the more people you try to engage in a collaboration, the harder it may be to develop activities, yet the deeper the knowledge the knowledge that is gained may be at a deeper level have a greater likelihood of contributing to really changing the landscape of research and of human activity. And in line with this perspective of, let's say, starting to discuss what the next topics should be for the subsequent calls, of course, we jointly have interests in a number of areas, and we could look at them from the SDGs perspective, and Fapesp is currently envisioning a series of workshops to set its strategic view on what topics it may select to finance in the coming years. Of course, this is a discussion yet to take place at Fapesp, and it should involve the scientific community at large, and of course, for our joint activities, this should be a discussion that we have in partnership with our colleagues at NSFC. However, I would like to, let's say, toss a suggestion, which would be on hunger, because to alleviate hunger, it's a topic of great importance for all of our countries, for the globe in general, and it has not only to do with production, in which Brazil has an important position, but with, let's say, also storage and waste and a series of other topics in which we actually have joint interests in terms of how we deal with not only with the production, which is the side most often looked at, but also from the subsequent steps on this chain. As I mentioned, this is just a wild idea. We have not discussed this previously in any of our conversations, and also this should be a topic for discussion at Fapesp, but it would link with global climate change, and again, in a number of ways.
Yes.
The way we see this is an initial step for a long journey that we may make together, and we hope that this partnership with NSFC it's fruitful and provides benefits from both our communities and the globe in the years to come. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, then I think we are closing this ceremony. So again, congratulating all the researchers with these very, very nice projects. And we hope that we'll have a very, very fruitful future collaborations. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to our Chinese partner. I think that Dr. Li wants to talk a little bit.
Yes, thank you very much. And I fully agree with Dr. Melo said, and you know, it's food, hungry, really a big topic also in China. We should work together, you know. So we may discuss face to face next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with this we close.